I'm Rob,
And I'm Nate.
and welcome to Rob and Nate Record a Podcast. This month we are watching some older Jackie Chan films. These are all Jackie Chan straight martial arts films. None of his comedies, none of that type of stuff. These are all older Jackie Chan films, and kind of I guess, a little bit of a nostalgia piece for me. So we started out this month by watching the movie Operation Condor, which of course is not actually the original Operation Condor, it's the sequel. Operation Condor 2 is actually the original movie, but we watched the 1991 Operation Condor. There's really not a lot of plot to these movies. So I guess just to get the plot out of this out of the way for this movie, Jackie, and it's kind of funny that Jackie Chan's character name is just plain Jackie in the movie. They don't bother dealing with names, anything like that. But Jackie is hired to help the UN find some Nazi gold in the Sahara. Hired out of Spain. Not really clear why they...
Well, he has his original meeting with his counterpart who says Jackie is one of his agents, and he's operating out of the U.S. Embassy in Spain. But Jackie just came back from a mission
in the Amazon.
It's very Indiana Jones, and it's very much like the opening sequence of the original Indiana Jones film in the Amazon. So there's a lot of questions about the structure. Like, a lot of things in this film don't really make sense.
Well, so as I understand it, the opening of this movie kind of piggybacks on the ending of Operation Condor 2, the original Operation Condor.
Now, they're in a reverse order simply because of their release out in the United States.
Yes.
Because this is Hong Kong.
And if you were to look at this in Hong Kong, the original Operation Condor is called something like Armor of God. So this should have actually probably been called Armor of God 2 or something like that. Mm-hmm. But anyways, pointless, regardless. The opening sequence piggybacks off of the ending of the original film, is my understanding. I actually haven't watched Operation Condor 2.
Yeah.
I should probably watch it at some point. Watch it,
yeah.
But I have not yet watched it. But Operation Condor is kind of a sentimental favorite of mine. I like a lot of the Jackie Chan movies. I really wanted to show Nate Jackie Chan's First Strike, but I didn't feel like it was, with some of the other movies we were looking at for this month, I didn't feel like it was worth taking up the time, taking up a whole week out of the month to show him that movie. But that one is one of the best in terms of like the outtakes and some of the action sequences. It's a lot shorter, things like that. But Operation Condor, I don't remember why that was such a sentimental favorite for me. I remember seeing this, I think I saw it in the theaters, but it's just so fun. And the Jackie Chan action sequences, knowing that he actually performed all of those stunts himself, they were all choreographed, and everything you saw in those, none of that's effects. All of that was actually choreographed and performed on film.
One of those scenes in particular, there's really no reason why Jackie Chan needed to do it, because when you see it, you're seeing it from a great distance. You cannot make out that Jackie Chan is the person the camera's on. It's when he's in that... so he steals some gems, or tries to steal some gems from some people in the Amazon's temple.
I think I know where you're going with this.
He gets chased out, and he has this hamster ball thing.
Oh, that one. Yeah.
Big inflatable hamster ball thing that he uses to escape, and he ends up taking it off of a cliff face.
Yeah, just right down the mountain.
And you can see it. So it's shot from a helicopter at quite some distance, and you just see this ball kind of bouncing down this hillside.
Yeah, I mean, he did that though. You gotta, there's part of you that
he was
has
very
to love
committed.
that he did it, and I thought you were going to talk about something else. It was in the outtakes. Do you remember I pointed out to you a fall in the outtakes where he kind of misses a chain? There was supposed to be a different stunt inside that cave, but Jackie Chan in that fall, he straight up dislocated his sternum.
Yeah.
And it prevented them from being able to film some of the rest of the stunts that they were supposed to do, in that setting. Jackie Chan, talk about commitment to your craft and whatnot. He broke everything back then. I forget. You used to be able to... There was somewhere you used to be able to look it up. I'm sure you probably still could today. I don't know where it is, and I'm not going to take the effort to do it right now. But you used to be able to look up movie by movie
what he broke.
Yes. Yeah. He beat himself up for these movies, but I mean, you laughed at this movie quite a
Oh,
bit.
it's a funny movie. Yeah. I have very limited experience with Jackie Chan. Obviously, I know who he is. I've seen bits of a fair number of his films. In fact, I had seen sequences from this film on a video essay online within the last few months. So there's a certain point I'm like, oh, I've seen this. But the only two Jackie Chan films that I can think of that I know I've seen all the way through were ironically Shanghai Nights. I've not seen Shanghai Noon.
Yeah.
Saw Shanghai Nights because some other people were going to see it. And then Who Am I, which I saw one day when I wasn't feeling very sick, and it like came on Stars.
Who Am I is good.
Who Am I is pretty solid. Yeah, I
Yeah.
quite enjoyed Who Am I. Did not care for Shanghai Nights that much.
Yeah. We probably would have been watching Who Am I this month if I already owned it, but I didn't own it. So the four that we picked were based in part based on which movies I currently own. I'm actually kind of surprised I don't own Who Am I? I'll probably, now that I'm aware that I don't own it, I will probably
Yeah.
add it to my collection at some point. I really thought about buying it just for the sake of being able to use it in this episode, but I decided to go with four that I already owned. But yeah, Who Am I is a really good one.
And this movie, just to kind of date it, it's from about 1991.
Yes.
It looks like it's from 1991. It's dubbed, obviously, not particularly well in some sequences.
Well, part of me, to me, to a
There's
certain
a charm
extent,
to it.
yeah, exactly. I was
Uh-huh.
about to say there's a certain amount of enjoyment out of watching the dubbed Jackie Chan movies.
It's very much a cartoon. I mean, there's just crazy stuff that happens. The plot does not make a lot of sense. It's just kind of
The plot is basically an
things
excuse.
vaguely structured to string together the set pieces.
Yeah. And
and
it's basically an excuse for some of the stunts.
yeah. There's an awful lot of movement to it. I don't think it holds up that well if you were really trying to think out now what's going on here. Why is this base, this Nazi base in the middle of the Sahara Desert, have a
Well, but there's
like
been multiple
a room where you test like the aerodynamics of aircraft?
a wind tunnel.
A wind tunnel?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's multiple references to Nazi bases in the Sahara.
This was a pretty elaborate Nazi base to have just been forgotten in the desert.
Yeah. I think we actually, though, before we go on too much further, I don't think we actually finished the quick plot summary. So again, Jackie is hired to help the UN find some Nazi gold hidden in the Sahara. They're starting out from Spain. Again, as we mentioned, it's not really clear why, but he's being accompanied from the get-go from Spain by two cute women.
Yeah.
Along the way, on their way to there, they pick up a
third
cute woman.
who's also a Chinese woman. So two of them are Chinese. One of them's supposed to be German.
Yeah.
Who's the granddaughter of one of the Nazis who hid some gold on this base in the Sahara.
Yeah.
And then the first Chinese woman works with the UN, and she's a deserts expert, which is
Evidently.
a thing. And then the third woman is also Chinese, who's out on some kind of a pilgrimage in the desert,
Yeah.
and
yeah.
she has a pet scorpion who dies tragically.
Yes, and they have to bury
have
the
to bury
pet
it.
scorpion. But of course, there are others who want the Nazi gold, and so that is the setup for a number of kung fu fighting scenes and a lot of the comedy that occurs within this movie.
Yeah,
And
the film has quite a few really good set pieces. There's early on, of course, there's the prologue set piece in the Amazon, and then there's the car chase in Spain. Then there's the hotel scene in probably Morocco, something like that, North Africa, and then multiple sequences at the Nazi base, and then there's of course the sequence with the Arab traders
Yep.
that raid the camp that they're in, looking for this German base. Out of nowhere, for no apparent reason, these desert bandits kidnap two of the women to sell to sheiks and camel herders, and
Yeah, there is some terrible stereotyping.
there's terrible stereotypes. You've got
But part of me wants to ask you a quick question.
Okay.
Is the terrible stereotyping okay because this is a Chinese film and not an American
it's
film?
more understandable also for the period that it was made. I was commenting that so this film was originally released in Southeast Asia, I mean, for that audience, and then later to the United States and elsewhere. And so they have the Nazis as kind of the historic bad guys who had stolen this gold. I don't think the initial audiences for this film would have known very much at all
Yeah.
about World War II, the European theater or the African theater. But yeah, there's a number of jokes in here you wouldn't do today.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I One thing I didn't ever fully understand is we have these two. I guess they're supposed to be Arabs or Muslims, even though they appear to be just two white guys, but they're wearing the get up. Who are kind of the comic relief second tier villains that keep showing up trying to get Jackie Chan and the girls and keep failing.
With the bad stereotypical accent.
Bad stereotypical, and they talk about Allah. They also talk about gods, which completely contradicts itself. Who are they? Why are they after them? How did they know they have this key and this map to this gold?
Well, wasn't it obvious that there's a broad conspiracy for the gold that is creating this like information pipeline where people are finding out that people are coming to look for the gold so they can all converge and try and get the gold as well?
Because the principal bad guys are a group of mercenaries who, very late in the film, we find out are hired by the only survivor of the gold group that hid this gold at the Nazi base.
Yep.
He shows up very late in the film.
Yep. And he's... theoretically,
he switches sides really quick too.
Well, and theoretically, he's the true villain of the film, but then he's supposed to be kind of also a little bit of a hero at the end of the film, or towards the end of the film. Sacrifices himself to help save the others. That wind tunnel scene, the only reason, I mean, I guess I can partially answer your question. The reason that it's at this Nazi base is to create the action sequences that it was used for. So... yeah, I mean, again, if you're coming into this film for a plot, you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense, and it doesn't need to make sense. It just needs to be there to have an excuse to have these really good set pieces, these really well choreographed.
But it
stunts.
is highly entertaining.
Yeah.
And I did answer one of my own questions. I couldn't remember why this film stood out to me so heavily in the beginning. So this is a 1991 release, but it was released in Hong Kong in 1991. It didn't come to the U.S. till 1997.
Okay.
So I went and saw this in the theaters when I was 16.
Okay.
And that's part of why I remember it, and that's why I remember seeing it in the theaters. And it's been a sentimental favorite of mine ever since then. It actually took me a long time to find it on DVD. So I had only seen it 2 or 3 times, and then when my wife worked at Hollywood Video and was closing a Hollywood Video location, that's when I purchased a copy of it because I had not seen a copy of it outside of a video rental store ever.
Yeah.
But yeah, when they were closing one of the Hollywood Video locations, actually it was the Sandy Hollywood Video on 9400 South and Highland Drive. My wife was the manager of that location when it was closing, and so we bought a bunch of DVDs when it was closing because we could get them for really cheap.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's when I bought this film, and yeah.
Now, you'd seen other Jackie Chan movies before you saw this theatrically in 97?
Yeah.
And that's probably why you went to see it. So, there's a Jackie Chan.
Yeah, I don't remember all the names of all the ones that I'd seen. Jackie Chan's First Strike was always a favorite of mine. I believe that we owned a copy of it and would watch it semi-regularly. So when I had chances to see other Jackie Chan's films, I'd jump all over it. That also then eventually led to me seeing Rumble in the Bronx, which is arguably the greatest Jackie Chan film of that, of the actual Jackie Chan doing martial arts films.
Right. And obviously he's
there are many who will argue that it's not. And we're going to watch what most people think are the best this month. So we can come to some sort of determination on that at the end of the month. So this was certainly the lightest of the 4 that we'll watch this month. Any other thoughts on this?
No. I mean, I enjoyed it. I laughed. When we talked about doing this as the theme for the month, I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to have a lot to say about these films.
I don't think we're going to talk extensively about very many of the films, except for maybe to discuss just some of the action sequences, some of the stunts that Jackie Chan performs. I expect that most of these episodes will be relatively short. So, one of the things I was going to mention about this film, Jackie Chan has said in his autobiography that this movie cost approximately $15 million US to make. He said that in his autobiography, and if that was true, this would be the most expensive Hong Kong movie ever to have been made at that time.
Indeed.
Kind of interesting. Some numbers on this film. Again, you have that estimated $15 million US budget. Its opening weekend in the US, which was July 20th, 1997. Opening weekend, it brought in $4.7 million. Here in the U.S. market, its total U.S. gross is listed at $10,405,000. There does not appear to be an accurate worldwide gross, but if it made back $10 million on its U.S. run, I would assume that the filmmakers would have considered this a successful film.
Yeah, and that 4-point-something million dollar opening weekend for a 7-year-old or a 6-year-old Hong Kong action film is pretty good.
That's dubbed.
Yeah, that's dubbed.
Yeah.
This is Jackie Chan really started to catch on probably the middle 90s.
Yeah.
That's when he started to make his transition into doing the films with Chris Tucker and Owen Wilson and that kind of the comedy phase, which we're not going to be doing this month, but which most people in the United States would know him for primarily.
Yeah. And he did some stunts in those movies, but significantly less. I'm assuming you can already catch on to that from just having watched just this one film. So I don't have too much else to say about this film. I guess maybe let's talk about ratings. How would you rate this film?
I'd give this film 3 stars on a 4-star scale. It's just, I mean, it's a good movie. It's perfect for the kind of movie that it is.
Yeah.
I would love to show this movie to my 11-year-old nephew.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
I think this would be a great film for that demographic and for older people too. I mean, it's just fun.
Yeah. One of the scenes we forgot to probably mention that's one of the funny sequences and scenes is the hotel scene.
The hotel scene is great. That might be my favorite sequence.
Yeah, I think that's probably where you laugh the most.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some really, really bad stereotypes, but it works for the film. It's fun. It's kind of funny, and obviously at the end, the hotel owner or operator obviously regretted a number of his choices.
Yeah.
So I think I would agree. I'd probably rate this 3 out of 4 stars on the 10-star scale. Probably give it right around 7 stars. This is not going to be like an all-time classic film, but it's certainly a fun film. Well, that will, I suppose, wrap us up for this week, and we will be back next week. I'm not sure what order we're going to go in. Let me double-check my notes, and I'll tell you which other films we're watching this month. So we already watched Operation Condor. We'll also be watching Rumble in the Bronx, Police Story, and Supercop. I don't know which order we'll go in. I kind of think we'll probably do Rumble in the Bronx next week.
All right.
Anything else, Dad?
No.
Okay, we'll call it good. All right, well, welcome back to week 2 of the Jackie Chan month.
It is January 7th, 2020. It is possible World War III started tonight. We are still waiting to see.
Yeah, that might get edited out. We'll see. Yes, we are in January of 2020.
The 7th of January.
Yep, the 7th of January. Yeah, but this is week 2 of our Jackie Chan month. Tonight we watched the classic Jackie Chan film, Rumble in the Bronx.
From 1995.
Yep. Nate, this was your first time seeing this. What kind of initial reactions do you have?
Well, I've heard the name, even though the name is a little misleading because there are multiple Rumbles in the Bronx over the course of this movie, not just one. Just before watching this, we watched an Oliver Harper retrospective film, which is a YouTube video on YouTube. He's a YouTuber, and he does these wonderful little kind of introductions to films. It gives a lot of the background about production and casting. It does a lot on the score. And he has these little montages at the beginning of his little videos that even if the movie is going to be horrible, by the time you end watching the montage, you want to see it. Now, this was not a movie that I was worried was going to be horrible, but they're kind of fun to watch. We may have to do this more often if they show up as relevant to the movies we're watching. But it was kind of neat to have that background to the film before watching it. Yeah,
and we had kind of debated whether to watch that before we watched the film or to watch it after we watched the film. I think it worked good to watch it before.
I think it did.
But yeah, it was a good montage. It probably helped you recognize certain things within the film. Not really necessary, though, prior to watching the film.
No, you can come in
fun.
Cold. Yeah.
Any other thoughts on this? So this is your first time seeing it,
this is my first time seeing it. I've heard the name, but I didn't know that much about it.
So one of the questions I asked Nate before we started recording was, I said, are you getting tired of Jackie Chan month yet? Because I wasn't sure going into this how Nate was going to react to watching a bunch of Jackie Chan films.
I mean, I was well disposed towards Jackie Chan. Obviously, he's a very likable presence, though I'd seen very little of his work. We discussed earlier, I think I'd only seen 2 of his films all the way through, though I'd seen bits and pieces of quite a few Jackie Chan films. This was a fun movie.
It's an easily likable film. There's not a lot to really dislike in this. again, Jackie Chan films aren't necessarily really plot heavy.
No.
There is decent plot to it, but a lot of the plot is just setups for action sequences.
Though in some ways, I think this movie worked better than Operation Condor as a movie. Like Operation Condor really felt like everything was an excuse to get to that next set piece. And in this movie, there was more of a coherent plot than in Operation Condor. Not that it was a great or deep plot by any means, but it was a little more coherent.
Well, and they, as we saw from that retrospective we watched before we watched it, they clearly put more effort into this film. And this was intended to be Jackie Chan's kind of big introduction to the U.S. market. Mm-hmm. In fact, some of the films like Operation Condor that we watched last week came, even though it was filmed prior to this film, came to the U.S. after this film.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was mid-90s is when he just kind of came on the scene as a known quantity in America. When we were watching the retrospective video, Oliver Harper had a throwaway line about how apparently Jackie Chan was in the Cannonball Run movies, which are Burt Reynolds' Dom DeLuise comedies from the 80s.
I missed that.
Now I'm more curious to see them and to see how they work Jackie Chan into those films. They're not supposedly not very good, but they're full of people. I want to say Sammy Davis Jr. is in one of them, and one of them I think was Frank Sinatra's last film role. We ended up talking about the Cannonball Run movies in this Jackie Chan.
Yeah, but Rumble in the Bronx, this is has historically been one of my favorite Jackie Chan films. Mm-hmm. I think it holds up relatively well. Some of these, honestly, given your kind of taste in movies, I was a little bit nervous because it's been quite a few years since I've seen this film. Yeah. And I was like, okay, how well is this going to hold up? Is Nate going to like this? Mm-hmm. Am I torturing Nate?
Well, one of the things we talked about before we were recording is with the movie months, because we alternate kind of who chooses things, and then we'll have weeks where we kind of choose something to show the other person. And that causes both of us to see movies that we probably wouldn't see otherwise.
Would be out of our wheelhouse.
I wouldn't have any, I like Jackie Chan. I would have no reason not to watch these movies, but they're not movies I would have gone out of my way to see on my own, because it just wouldn't really have occurred to me to do so.
Yeah, and this is largely for me. It was just kind of a funny thing. I was a huge fan when I was a kid. I remember watching a bunch of these at home, and so it was just kind of a fun reminiscent thing to be like, oh yeah, let's watch Jackie Chan, So, but yeah, back to Rumble in the Bronx. I guess we could do a quick plot overview.
Something about the plot.
Yeah, so Jackie Chan is coming to New York to visit his uncle, who owns a market, is selling his market in New York, but is engaged to be married. And Jackie Chan comes, his uncle picks him up at the airport. They come back and meet his aunt-to-be to discover that she is a large black woman.
Yeah. And this leads to one of the, and I'm not going to do it justice, but the way that Jackie Chan delivers this line. So he's in the market, his uncle's doing something outside, and he knows that he's gone to the market to meet his future aunt. And he sees this Asian woman, appropriate age for his uncle, and so assumes that this is the fiance, tries to give her a gift, and then is corrected and is introduced to this large black woman who his uncle is marrying. And they hug, and she's very, very enthusiastic about meeting him. And then afterwards, the uncle asks him, are you surprised having met your new aunt? So, yeah, kind of. Yeah. And just the delivery of the line was great.
Yeah, but it's honest, and yeah. Part of the reason Jackie Chan's character Kyung has come to the Bronx was to help out at his uncle's market while his uncle's on his honeymoon. But very early in the film, his uncle agrees to sell the market to a new buyer. The new buyer is Elaine, who is played by Anita Moy. I probably pronounced that wrong. I apologize. But so Anita agrees to buy the market
with very quickly. It's like she'd been in the market for a few minutes, and then like they finalized the deal.
Yeah, I mean that's just a function of the movie to progress the plot. But there's a little negotiation that's happening or behind closed doors in the office.
Kind of.
Yeah, it's implied that something is happening while you're outside the office. But it's very quick, just, to get it over with in the plot.
Well, behind the screens, because there's this gag having to do with a one-way mirror or a two-way mirror.
Yeah.
Where there's the manager of the market's office And on the other side, it just looks like a mirror. And so people come up to it not realizing. And Jackie Chan is flexing his muscles in the background during the negotiations, causing the potential buyer to laugh. And there's a funny little, I guess you'd call it a topper to that, when Jackie Chan steps in to tell his uncle something, looks at the window, looks back out, makes the connection in his mind, and then looks at the buyer who does this mock flexing of the muscles, and then he has this embarrassed look on his face.
Yeah. So that's part of the fun of the Jackie Chan movies, though, is they always have these comedic elements, and that's one of the good comedic elements.
And Jackie Chan's humorous persona is this kind of this likable. This persona is it's him. He's a little bit like John Wayne. It's like he's the same character, even if he has different names.
Yeah.
In all of his movies.
But because the purchase is happening quickly, Jackie agrees to stay and help Anita, as she takes over the market from his uncle. They finish the paperwork incredibly quickly, like in a matter of, it seems like within like a matter of like 2 days. Mm-hmm. The paperwork's done. The uncle sold the market.
Uncle goes off on the honeymoon.
Well, before that, it's kind of funny. The uncle is having the exterior of the store painted at the beginning of the film. Mm-hmm. And when she agrees to buy the market from the uncle, he says, "Look, the whole neighborhood has graffiti, but they leave my shop alone because they like me." But he's just painted over all the graffiti. It would have been hard to imagine that the paint wasn't still wet and didn't still smell fresh, things like that. But yeah, so during his stay in the Bronx, Kyung befriends a neighborhood kid, the neighbor of his uncle's, and beats up some neighborhood thugs who are there to try and cause some trouble in the market. That's the initial opening martial arts scene of this movie. Mm. It's a good little scene.
Yeah.
He uses his jacket as the device.
I don't think any of the action scenes in this film are really on the level of the action scenes in Operation Condor. They're not as long or involved. There's more of them, I think, and they're more they make more sense than they do in Operation Condor.
But the stakes are also a little bit higher, as we're going to see later in the film with the hovercraft scene. But anyways, so as the movie progresses, the neighborhood thugs stumble into a larger crime syndicate, get involved via a crime of opportunity, and are quickly in over their head.
It's kind of I wouldn't say it's a complicated plot, but there's a fair number of players in it.
And some twists.
We've got this gang, and I think there's another gang when they have the thing very early on with the racing the bikes. Those are two different gangs. They meet to have a drag race outside of the uncle's apartment, and Jackie Chan has to step in to prevent them from running over the borrowed antique-ish limousine that they're going to use for the wedding. And then we don't really see that other gang again, but we see this main gang that becomes bizarrely focused on
fixated on
torturing Jackie Chan, possibly up to including killing him.
Well, eventually they come around to killing him, and that's then their objective.
For no real good reason at all.
Yeah, and we kind of had this conversation very briefly as the movie was playing. Is this just bad stereotyping of New York in the 90s?
Yeah, this gang is kind of ridiculous. There is a scene later on where we see that they have like a clubhouse, and it's full of what appears to be stolen goods, televisions and skis and an assortment of things. And
your video that you showed me, the video you showed me before we started this on YouTube, he had an interesting and good comment. He said this gang acts like children high on sugar.
Yeah, because the inciting incident, the first real conflict he has with the gang is this guy was drinking drinks from the store part way and then putting it back on the shelves
and stealing candy.
And then there's another guy in the store that just had
loaded
tons and tons of candy, like in his jacket.
Candy and chips. Yep.
And it's like, this is what the gang's doing. They're doing the crime that a 10-year-old kid would do.
Yeah. But the gang stumbles into a larger crime syndicate, gets blinded by their greed, and steals a large amount of diamonds that have been stolen in a heist. Steals them from the syndicate.
So there's a scene early in the film where Jackie Chan is in kind of a leotard-ish thing in his uncle's apartment exercising, and you can hear a radio broadcast in the background. When we watch this with subtitles, partially because it goes back and forth a few times between Chinese and English. And the segment where you're listening to the news broadcast is not subtitled because, strictly speaking, you don't need it. But it does set up the whole diamond heist because there's a news report talking about how these $7 million worth of diamonds was stolen. We later see that it was stolen by what appears to be a black gang, and they are selling them to a white gang known as the White Tiger, or at least the head of the gang is known as the White Tiger, and something goes awry in the exchange, and the leaders of the black gang are killed in close proximity to some of the members of the gang that's been harassing Jackie Chan. They go to investigate. They find the diamonds. One of them, Anthony?
D'Angelo or something.
Angelo steals...
Angelo, not D'Angelo.
Angelo steals the diamonds because they're there. And the gang that was trying to buy the diamonds figures out that he has them, and they try to chase him down. And later they pretend to be the FBI, and they make Jackie Chan think that they're the FBI so that he later turns to them for help.
For assistance, yeah. Yeah, so he turns to what he thinks is the FBI for help. They then take his now friends, which includes the gang in the...
The gang that just tried to kill him days before by driving the vehicle pushing the vehicle he was in off of a parking garage.
Yeah.
Probably 6 or 7 stories in the air.
Well, so the gang leader's name is Tony, and in the credits, the gang is referred to as Tony's gang. So credited roles are Tony's gang member.
Mm. That was Tony's gang member number 6 in Rumbles in the Bronx.
Yeah, so Kyung makes friends with Tony and Tony's girlfriend, Nancy, who is played by...
Francios Yip.
Again, we butchered those names, I am certain. But makes friends with Nancy and with Tony, and they call in...
With Danny. Well, okay, no.
Danny. Danny's Nancy's...
Danny is Nancy's younger brother who's in a wheelchair.
Yes.
Who is befriended...
Who lives across the hall, I think, from Kyung's uncle.
Yeah, so become friends.
Yeah.
And at first, things don't... It takes a while for them to realize Nancy's connection.
Yeah.
Like, Kyung knew Nancy from the drag racing incident and a later incident where they fake that she's going to be raped in order to lull him into a place where they can beat him up.
Yep.
And they throw bottles at him.
And he's very severely beaten up.
And within days, he's saying they're his friends.
Yes. Well, but you also have to remember, she sees him coming home from that incident. He's all bloody, and he collapses at the top of the stairs. So she takes him in and bandages all of his wounds, gets him kind of set up to heal. And that's when, well, I guess Kyung's already met Danny, but that's when Danny starts trying to set Kyung up with Nancy.
Mm-hmm. It's one of dueling love interests.
Yes.
That, as Oliver Harper video says, never really pays off.
Yep.
It feels kind of left half out there, especially with the new buyer of the supermarket. They never really progressed much. In fact, I think one of the scenes that was in that video, I don't recall seeing in the film, which is...
Well, so he showed scenes from the Hong Kong version as well. And so that was one of the scenes that he was saying the love interest is played off a little bit more in the Hong Kong version, but still not fully resolved. But yeah, so either way, he very quickly, within, like you said, within a matter of days or maybe a week, goes from enemies
they have a fight, and he ends it by saying, like, you guys are wasting your life. I hope that next time we meet, we can be friends. And the gang
says,
like a gang in a Saturday morning cartoon series, like, do you think he really means it? Okay, now we want to be friends.
Yeah, he says, I hope next time we meet, we'll be drinking tea, not fighting. Yeah. Which is, it's cheesy. It's a Chinese proverb type thing, but it's kind of a Chinese, like, peace offering type thing. But yeah, so then they quickly become friends. Kyung convinces them that he's been in touch with the FBI, then that they should get the FBI involved.
Yeah, because they have tracked down, what's his name? Angelo. And obviously the gang's been after Angelo. Angelo knows this, and Tony's gang knows this, and so they're trying to get out of it by going to the FBI, but it's actually the White Tiger syndicate that has tricked them, and then they end up taking a number of Tony and Nancy and Angelo are all taken hostage. Angelo has hid the diamonds in Danny's
wheelchair seat cushion. But it's his old seat cushion, which has been replaced and discarded underneath the sofa.
There's a fair amount of plot time devoted to the wheelchair seat cushion in this movie. I think more wheelchair seat cushion plot than in any other movie ever made. I feel pretty confident saying that
Yeah.
that is the case.
Well, there you go. But so, anyways, that leads to other sequences where, like, they go. Kyung goes back to the house with several members of the syndicate. You know, they of course are manhandling Danny, which upsets Kyung, and he uses one of Danny's
And
crutches
yeah.
to beat up the syndicate members and take over the situation, take the syndicate members hostage.
Which leads to the funniest gag in the movie.
Yes.
So Kyung's there's two toughs from the White Tiger gang is there. Kong takes care of one of them. The other one is in the sister's room looking for some diamonds. When he comes out, there's this situation with a little bit of a standoff, and Danny throws Kong a football helmet. And he uses the football helmet to hit the guy. And then he drops the football helmet, and Danny throws him this industrial wrench.
It's a pipe wrench.
It's a pipe wrench.
And it's like a large pipe wrench.
And so he's holding it. He's just hit the guy with the football helmet. The guy looks at the wrench. He's just like, he starts breaking down. Like, no, just no,
well,
no.
So to clarify, like, Kyung, which is Jackie Chan, has thrown some great punches and hit the guy in the face, and he just looks at him like it's nothing, which is when Danny throws him the football helmet. Now, let's also address this properly. The throw of the football helmet was very believable. Jackie Chan grabs the helmet, smashes the guy across the face
It's something
once.
you'd have around the house.
Well, I meant like the strength with which Danny is able to throw him the helmet.
That's true.
So
I hadn't even thought of that.
He smacks him across the face with it, and the syndicate member is like, yeah, I can take that, which then leads to Danny throwing the pipe wrench. Now, let's clarify. I don't know have you ever lifted a pipe wrench like this?
I'm not sure. I don't think so.
I've got one in my shed. I'll have to have you lift it one day. The exact same size they use in the movie. It weighs like almost 50 pounds. I mean, I'm not kidding you. It's got to weigh at least 35, 40 pounds. And Danny supposedly just lobs this thing through the air at face level for Jackie Chan just to snatch. Now, Jackie Chan snatching it and handling of it is all believable, but Danny laying on the floor...
A crippled 10-year-old boy.
Couldn't pitch that way. But yes, then the syndicate member just starts trembling and totally caves. And, which, to be fair, if you got hit with a pipe wrench like that, you're probably
it's
dead.
Like, I'm not interested in... I'll give you what you want.
Yeah. So then Jackie and Tony and Nancy call in the real New York police, who don't really have that much interest in handling this the right way.
Yeah. You have one introductory scene to them earlier in the film after the chaos, after the diamond robbery gone amok. They actually... At the police station. You've got not the chief, the head of whatever division this is kind of crotchety and frustrated. And then later on, they introduce his number two, who is a black man who's always has this giant cigar.
Oh, yeah.
As kind of a recurring gag.
Yep.
And even when they're like in undercover stakeout situations, and it would draw a lot of unnecessary attention to have this man with a giant cigar, still has a giant cigar.
Yeah.
Because this movie is a cartoon.
Yes.
Which we may have glossed over a bit, but just the plot is kind of cartoon level plot. The dialogue is ridiculous, especially the dub dialogue. There's that lady who works at the grocery store's white lady. I want to say her name is Laura, who's obviously dubbed over. There's no apparent reason why you would dub her over.
So the whole movie is dubbed. Everyone's recorded in their native language. So some actors, when they were recording, were speaking English. Some actors, when they recorded, were speaking Chinese.
This is the old spaghetti western system where they bring in Clint Eastwood or whatever, and Clint Eastwood would speak his lines in English, and then the Italian actors were speaking Italian, or if they had some Spanish people. A lot of European productions, I think even now, well, maybe not so much now, but for a long time were done in that way, where you just speak the language and then we dub you in post-production.
Well, the main actors in this film, even the uncle... they dubbed their own lines for the various releases. So Jackie Chan does his own English, things like that. I looked this up. Jackie Chan actually was not fluent in English at the time that he filmed this film. He was learning English at this time. In fact, the movie studio sent him to the U.S. by himself, so he would be forced to work on his English skills. They flew him from Hong Kong to the U.S. unaccompanied, so that he would have to work on his English skills.
Should have sent a camera crew with him.
At one point, he was studying English 9 hours a day, trying to become fluent in English so that he could, do some of these things. But a lot of these lines that he delivers in this film, he doesn't know what he's saying. But he delivered all of his own lines in English, all that type of stuff, recorded it. It's shortly after this that he becomes pretty proficient in English and understands what's going on. But a lot of these films where he's dubbed his own lines in English, he doesn't know what he's saying. He's just saying whatever somebody's told him to say. And yeah, but it works. But we also commented on the fact that the dubbing of these films also is part of
their charm.
Yeah, it's the charm of these films. And I don't know that this film would be the same if it wasn't dubbed.
One thing that occurred to me while I was watching this film, which especially towards the end, has some pretty involved action sequences where you got a lot of cop cars. You got a scene with a bus kind of going skiwampus.
Yeah.
And then we'll get to the finale, hovercraft. The hovercraft. The other big New York City-based action movie of 1995 would have been Die Hard with a Vengeance. And just to think that these two films are contemporary movies with the same setting, how very different they are.
Yeah.
They're both very fun movies.
Yeah. We have to address just some of the sequences in this film. Jackie Chan performs almost all of his own stunts in this movie. The only stunts he doesn't perform himself is towards the end of the film after he's had an injury. Some of the water skiing scenes he doesn't film himself, but there's a scene where Tony's gang is trying to kill Kyung, and he's hiding in the back of a truck with a bunch of balls in the back of the truck,
a bunch of like beach balls.
Well,
they're not beach balls.
They're not beach balls.
They're like inflatable balls that
you'd find them at the grocery store.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. In fact, I remember we used to go to Walmart and throw things into the pit of these balls just to watch them sink to the bottom. Mm-hmm. But it's a bunch of these balls, and he's jumped in the bed of the truck in these balls to hide from Tony's gang. And of course, the driver of the truck rats him out. They push the vehicle off the parking garage, and it lands on the street below. They actually did that. But Jackie Chan, to escape Tony's gang, runs and jumps off the parking garage across a street and lands on the fire escape of a building next door. Mm. I mean, he actually did this.
Yeah.
Who does that?
You see footage, semi-behind-the-scenes footage of it in the montage at the end of the
the
film,
closing
which
credit.
is, I guess, that a thing with the Jackie Chan films.
Outtakes.
And it didn't seem like anybody was really worried about it at all.
There are a lot of one-shot takes in this film. Mm-hmm. Like basically almost everything with the hovercraft. If you screw it up, you're done.
We should probably hurry up and get to that.
Yeah, we're going to get to that. So the setup of Tony and the police are not, the cops are lazy. They're not resolving the case appropriately. So Kyung takes matters into his own hands and goes after the syndicate.
Yeah, so the syndicate has kidnapped Jackie's friend, as we mentioned earlier. Tony and Nancy and others. And so Jackie Chan is working with the cops. They have him wear wire for a while. He's found out. The thugs report to their boss, the White Tigers, like he was wearing a wire. The White Tigers like, that's it. Kill him. Kill his friends. Who cares about the diamonds? We need to move on because we don't need any more trouble. After which they end up shooting at a police helicopter and all sorts of other trouble-inducing problems happen. Yeah. And the bad guys take a hovercraft, like a tour of New York Harbor hovercraft. They take it over. They take some hostages. There's a hovercraft chase that starts out on water and ends up on land. And it is it's the distinctive sequence in this film. It's like if you're going to remember one sequence in Rumble in the Bronx, it's going to be that crazy hovercraft chase.
And one of the iconic sequences of Jackie Chan's career, he is trying to get onto the hovercraft to get to his friends, and he jumps from a pier underneath a bridge onto the hovercraft, and when he lands, he breaks his ankle. It's graphic. It's in the movie. You can see it very clearly. Breaks his ankle severely. They have to take him off. He has to go get a cast on it. They're trying to figure out what they're going to do for filming. Someone in the production staff comes up with the idea to paint a sock to look like his shoe. They pull a sock over his cast. They split his pants and put Velcro on it so he can pull his pants over his cast, Velcro him shut, and he films the rest of the film with a cast on his foot.
And this is something they went over in some depth in the retrospective video we watched beforehand, which I think was probably the best thing about watching that beforehand because it made you aware of it. And
I was well aware of it, and I was going to be pointing it out to you.
And so I don't know if I would have picked up on the sock and the cast if I hadn't known about that beforehand. But once you're aware that that's happening, you can totally see it.
Oh, and you can spot it. Like, so they do crazy stuff with the hovercraft. Jackie Chan actually got ran over by a hovercraft on a beach. It ran him over. And when he goes in the movie, he just pops up out of the sand and takes off running. And that shot, you can tell very obviously he's wearing a cast. But this guy's crazy. He not only jumped from a parking garage to another building, he not only broke his ankle and kept filming,
He willingly
got ran over by a hovercraft. It's amazing. It's great to watch. It provides great entertainment. But yeah, I don't know what else to say.
No.
Yeah, what do you have anything to say about it?
No. I mean, it's the signature sequence of this movie. It's creative. It's entertaining.
Yeah. Jackie Chan manages to stop the hovercraft by basically carjacking a Lamborghini, which he puts in reverse to take the gull-wing doors off by driving underneath a semi-truck after he has stolen a sword from, I think, a restaurant or something, and uses his foot on the door frame of the Lamborghini as he drives past the hovercraft to cut the skirt on the hovercraft so that it can no longer drive. Yeah, so that's how he stops the hovercraft. They get the syndicate, they patch the skirt, and Jackie Chan and his friends, along with a couple police officers, drive to the golf course where the white tiger is and chase the white tiger down with the hovercraft.
And it's a bizarre ending, and it just kind of ends there. So with police sanction, Jackie Chan and a bunch of civilians on a stolen hovercraft chase down a mob boss, run him over with this hovercraft. It tears his crazy golf outfit apart so that when the hovercraft has finished going over him, there's a shot and he's been basically stripped naked and more or less is some tatters of clothes, horribly bruised up butt and back. And then everybody laughs and then the closing credits.
Yep.
There is no resolution to this film. Danny's disappeared for the last 20, 30 minutes of it. We never see the reaction of the uncle coming back from the honeymoon to see his old store has been completely torn apart. We forgot to even mention that the bad guys
demolishes the store.
Get like a semi-truck.
It's the tow truck that you would use to tow a semi-truck.
To tow a semi-truck. They get a lot of chains up on the recently remodeled because Tony's gang destroyed it earlier in the movie, and they're just finished fixing it back up, and then it is torn off of its foundations, completely demolished. It looks like a dollhouse. You can see parts of rooms because there's an apartment above it. Yeah.
But good film, fun film. How would you rate this film?
I would probably give it 3 stars. I don't know if I could ever, as much as I enjoy these, that a Jackie Chan film of this type could ever be more than 3 stars.
We will see, because according to many of the rankings that I read online, this is not the best Jackie Chan film. The 2 that we're going to watch coming up
are both... So we're ramping up.
Yep. The 2 that we're going to watch later on are both supposed to be better than either of the films we've watched thus far. I intentionally started with Operation Condor because I anticipated it would be the weakest of the ones we'd watch. Mm-hmm. I debated where to put Rumble in the Bronx in because it's really one of my favorites. But according to multiple lists that I read, it is not one of the top. I mean, it's in the top 5 usually on these lists, but it's not the top. So the other 2 movies we're going to watch this month both are higher rated and things like that. So that's why I went in the order that I did. But yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to them. As we talked about earlier, before recording, you were asking, well, what did you think when we were going to do Jackie Chan months? Were you excited or were you worried? And I said, I think I thought that it would get old. So far, it's not gotten old.
Yep. We will see in the next 2 weeks whether or not it does get old. So I'm Rob.
And I'm Nate.
And this is Rob and Nate Record Podcast. We'll see you next week. Actually, it won't be next week. It'll just be
because
seconds
we'll
away.
just edit that other part out.
We'll see you momentarily.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome back to week 3 of the Jackie Chan month, continuing with Jackie Chan martial arts movies. This week we watched the 1992 film Supercop. Initial thoughts, Nate? This was your first time seeing this, right?
Yeah, as with all of these, this is my first time seeing it because I have very limited Jackie Chan film experience. Of the three that we've seen so far, I would say this is probably the weakest. It's not without its moments. There's really not a big standout fight sequence, in my opinion, or sequence in the film until very late.
Yeah.
Where they have that very long sequence that starts as a chase sequence, becomes a helicopter sequence, and then a helicopter and train sequence in Malaysia.
It's just a prolonged
It's
chase.
just very long, yeah.
Which you kind of get a little bit of at the end of Rumble in the Bronx, but you had more consistent action throughout Rumble in the Bronx. And there are other fight scenes. There was also, in Supercop, there are other fight scenes. There was also the fight at the camp when they were trying to split up the drugs, and they blow everything up.
There's the scene when they're getting out of the prison camp where they have to run up the coal.
Yeah.
By the coal train cart. Yeah.
There's also at the beginning in the training camp.
Yeah. There's the training sequence. Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, there's less fight scenes than this one. There's more traditional movie plot.
Yeah, it is. As we were talking about before we recorded, that I thought Operation Condor was funner, but this is more of a movie. Operation Condor was just, we have some sequences and we'll find excuses to string between the sequences to be somewhat coherent. This actually had a plot. This is from 1992. It's one of his Hong Kong action films. There's comic elements in it, but not nearly as pronounced as in the other two films we've seen so far. But Jackie Chan plays a Hong Kong police detective. This is back in the period of time where Hong Kong was still part of the British Empire, about 5 or so years before it was reintegrated into China. And he basically volunteers, or is tricked into volunteering in the opening sequence, to volunteer to work with the Chinese in a joint operation to run down some drug runners.
Well, they also specifically mentioned DEA, which would be a U.S. agency, and she says she's Interpol.
Interpol, which is not an actual police agency.
Well, Interpol is a police
Interpol is a pooling of resources. There's not like a cop who's an Interpol cop.
There are Interpol cops.
Not in my understanding. I thought Interpol was just basically a way of sharing information.
There are people who work directly for Interpol at this point. I don't know exactly. Yeah, I don't know all the details. But yeah, she claims she's Interpol. It's stated that it's a DEA operation, but they're trying to... A lot of this is translation errors or translation simplifications.
But
they're trying to break up a smuggling ring, so they have to break out the drug kingpin out of a Chinese prison.
Yeah, the drug kingpin's brother is in a Chinese prison, and they have to break him out and have Jackie Chan and the Chinese DEA agent that he's partnered with.
Inspector Jessica Yang, director of Interpol, who is played by Michelle Yeoh. I don't know how to pronounce that correctly.
And they pretend to be brother and sister, and they help get the one guy out so that he takes them to Hong Kong to the brother, and they become kind of inner circle fairly quickly.
Yep.
But of course that does not last.
Yep, and then they go to Malaysia where his wife is being put on trial for drug smuggling and very stiffly is being sentenced to death for drug smuggling. Mm-hmm. Seems a little steep.
A little steep, but some of these Southeast Asian countries are kind of known for very severe penalties.
So they need to break the syndicate boss, his wife, out of
custody, of Malaysian police custody.
Yep.
They do a fair amount of nation hopping. So you have Hong Kong, you have mainland China. And one of the neat things about mainland China here, and I don't know if it would actually have been filmed there, probably not, but this is 1992, possibly 91, depending on when they actually did the filming. Mainland China, which is a heck of a lot different from the way China is today. You still have these vestiges of old Mao Zedong era. They have a weird sequence early on where they're taking all these pictures of Jackie Chan, which I guess they're using to create kind of a paper trail.
Yeah,
they end up using some of these pictures and putting it on a bulletin board at what's supposed to be his home. So they have to create a fake sense of history to him, and they have him in the kind of Chinese garb that you'd see from all those the old propaganda.
They put a lot of work into this setup, but they spend several minutes taking photos of him, which are essentially then photoshopped to be displayed in his home. After they've broken out the syndicate boss's brother out of the Chinese prison, they take him back to a village, and that's where his family's supposed to be, and all these pictures are displayed on the wall of Jackie Chan doing all these things. Of course, Jackie Chan has no clue what these photos are. They've essentially just been photoshopped, but yeah.
Yeah, it takes him a moment to even... that's kind of one of the... It's not laugh out loud funny, but it's an amusing sequence where he's supposed to be taking these drug people to what's supposed to be his hometown, but he's never been there before.
Yeah.
And doesn't know anybody or where anything's supposed to be. But the Chinese government has apparently paid a heck of a lot of people to act like they know who he is. And so everybody's, hey, he's back.
Yeah.
Hey, I haven't seen you in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I'd seen this before. It's been quite a while since I've seen this film. It's fun. It's not a bad movie. But it's certainly... So the reason... I guess I should back up a little bit. The reason we watched them in the order that we have thus far is I looked at several different lists that ranked the top Jackie Chan movies. And of the two that we had left to see, Supercop and Police Story, they are consistently ranked higher than Rumble in the Bronx. Mm-hmm. Going into this, I thought I was going to save Rumble in the Bronx for week 4 because it's pretty much my personal favorite. I think it's a pretty good penultimate movie for doing Jackie Chan. Now I'm kind of regretting not having stuck with my gut, but we'll see if Police Story redeems, the internet.
Supercop. So before we started watching the film, as I'll sometimes do jokingly, it's like they better use the name of the film in the film. So I better freaking hear the word Supercop. And Rob was like, I don't know if they ever used the word Supercop. Maybe it's just the title. The term Supercop is used 10 times in probably about the first 15-20 minutes of the film, and then an additional 28 times in the closing song, also called Supercop.
Yeah, but it's not mentioned after the first 15-20 minutes of the film. It's not, that term is not used the rest of the movie.
They're using it to describe him and to kind of upsell him to the mainland Chinese. Like, this guy's a super cop. He's got a reputation. He's a super cop, and they keep using the word, and it's just ridiculous.
Yeah. That might, again, have been one of those translation dubbing issues. I don't know. The dubbing, to me, is still, in this movie, having things dubbed is still... It has an intrinsic quality still. Yeah, I still enjoy it.
There's still an element of charm to it, because some of the... Especially the head of the Hong Kong police, who's an Asian man, has a voice like he's somebody out of London.
Yeah.
It just does not fit, but it's amusing.
Yeah. I don't think there's a lot else to say about this movie.
I think we should talk just very briefly. I don't know if you picked up on Michelle Yeoh, who plays the Chinese director of Interpol. She's a big actress. You've seen her in stuff. Yeah, she was in Tomorrow Never Dies. She's in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Memoirs of a Geisha. She was the prospective mother-in-law in Crazy Rich Asians last year.
I didn't realize she was in that one.
She's in Last Christmas, the Emilia Clarke film that just came out. So she's comparable of a name to Jackie Chan, at least in Asia. And now, in fact, she's probably a bigger star now than Jackie Chan is now.
Well, Jackie Chan now primarily does directing and things of that nature.
And we forgot to talk about the, I guess you'd call it, for lack of anything else, the love triangle element of it. So Jackie Chan has a girlfriend back in Hong Kong. He doesn't want to get her nervous, even though he makes sure...
Her name is May. She's played by Maggie Cheung.
Yeah. He makes sure she knows, has the key to the safety deposit box and all this insurance information, even though he tells her that he's going on some assignment out in the country for about a month.
He's basically told her he's going on like a training operation.
Yeah.
Something really safe because he's had some dangerous assignments, several in a row. And so he tells her he's going basically on a training assignment. But she's a tour guide and ends up running into him and the Interpol agent while they're while they're still in Hong Kong.
No,
it's in Malaysia.
So it's like, what are the odds? And they never say she's a tour guide or anything before you see her as a tour guide later in the film. And the implication I had was she was going to be in Hong Kong the whole time. It's like nothing was mentioned about how she was going to be out of the country.
Yeah. It sounds like she got, picked up a last-minute tour to Malaysia and is over there as the tour guide, and she runs into Inspector Chan Ka-kui, anyways, the Jackie Chan character, and then there's some antics that ensue as she wants to say hi to her boyfriend who's trying to shoo her. She doesn't understand what's going on. He's trying to explain to her what's going on, and of course it all backfires as May gets kidnapped by the syndicate, and is held hostage. And so as they're trying to free the leader of the syndicate's wife, they're also trying to free May from the syndicate and get her back.
Yeah, the syndicate is using May as leverage to force Jackie Chan and Michelle Yeoh to help free the syndicate leader's wife. But of course, the intention is to free her just long enough to get May back and then to reapprehend her, which they kind of do at the end, though like these other Jackie Chan films, this movie just kind of ends. There's very little resolution. You get the big bad, he's gone, and then you're to credits within a minute.
Yeah. And, I mean, the film, I guess as with many martial arts movies, it's about the martial arts and about the sequences. Satisfyingly, as with many of the other Jackie Chan movies, you have outtake sequences at the end of the film. But yeah, once they've gotten the bad guy, what's the point in prolonging the story? There's not going to be any more martial arts. So
Yeah, these are not story films.
But yeah, the credits, it rolls into the bloopers or whatever you want to call them, and you see what was done for some of the stunts, and they did some crazy stuff for these stunts.
Yeah, very risky stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's a common theme throughout the Jackie Chan stuff, but more people are being put at risk in this one. Michelle Yeoh, or a stunt person on behalf of Michelle Yeoh, is jumping a motorcycle onto the train and intentionally crashing it to end up on the train, things like that. And yeah, and then there's the helicopter, and there's some scenes with a van, I guess like a police van, and Jackie Chan driving behind in a convertible that are kind of crazy, and yeah, fun stuff. How would you rate this film?
It suffers a bit in comparison to the films that I've seen immediately, because I feel like I probably, if I was just watching this and I wasn't a regular viewer of Jackie Chan films, I think I probably would have enjoyed it more because it would have been so different.
If it wasn't in the contracted
time scale. Yeah, I'd probably give this 2.5.
Yeah, I'm about the same, about 2.5 stars. Again, I don't think this is as good as Rumble in the Bronx.
No.
Again, I'm hoping that I made a smart decision in ending with Police Story next week, and that will be redeemed, and that I shouldn't have saved Rumble in the Bronx for the final week, but next week will be our final week. I did jokingly ask Nate this earlier. I guess it's probably worth putting in the podcast. So we had planned 4 weeks of the month of January for Jackie Chan, though there are 5 weeks in January. So Nate, you up for week 5 of Jackie Chan?
I think I'll pass.
Yeah,
I am enjoying these, but
not that much.
Not too much. Yeah, it's like you use it in looking
Sparingly?
for. Yeah, sparingly. Jackie Chan's good sparingly.
Yeah, they're certainly fun films. It might be fun to sit down and do them as like a marathon in a weekend, or it'd be more fun to spread them out. But yeah, it's definitely not something you should avoid or anything like that. Fun films, and yeah, we'll wrap up this week. And by the time you all are listening to this, you'll be able to start finding this podcast on all of the major podcast listening platforms. But we'll be back next week for week 4 and have a few more details, hopefully, about where you can start listening to this in more accessible means than just YouTube. So,
Indeed.
Yep. See you next week. Welcome back to week 4 of Jackie Chan month. This week's movie was Police Story, which, as we have since been doing a little bit of research, we have discovered that we kind of watched these out of order because Nate discovered that Supercop also has the alternate title of Police Story 3.
Yeah, in the Hong Kong and some other markets, it was released as Police Story 3, and it has many of the same characters, well, 3 of the same characters as this original Police Story film from 1985.
Yeah, but the reason we selected to watch them in the order we did was, it was based on lists that list the top Jackie Chan movies, and Police Story was consistently in the top 3 of Jackie Chan's martial arts movies. This was your first time seeing this movie. What are your initial impressions of this movie?
Well, I knew basically nothing about it. I think I'd heard the title.
Yeah.
You'd seen it before, but many, many years ago, right?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen this probably since the mid to late 90s. Yeah.
So I really, I mean, I knew kind of what to expect, given that we've been watching Jackie Chan movies.
Yeah.
But I knew nothing about the particulars of this film other than that it was the originator of the Police Story franchise, which eventually leads to Supercop.
Yeah. Yep.
And the word Supercop is never used in this film the word superhero is once.
So, what are your first impressions of this film?
I liked it.
Yeah.
I liked it more than I liked Supercop.
I can see why. Personally, I think Supercop was better. This movie, I'm not sure this held up the best. There are some misogynistic.
There is, and we'll get to that. I kind of loved the fact that this was the 1980s. Jackie Chan wasn't the star that he'd become yet.
Well, but he was a star. So
he was a star there.
Yeah, in Hong Kong he was. In fact, in Hong Kong, the reason this is given such a simple title of like police story is Jackie Chan was enough of a star in Hong Kong that when they would announce a movie he was working on, people would start to make duplicates of it or other things in anticipation. Like when they announced that he was going to be doing Drunken Master, people started releasing other drunken variation movies. Trying to get ahead of what Jackie Chan was doing. So when they announced that Jackie Chan was doing Police Story, nobody knew what to make of it because nobody knew how to make kung fu into a police movie.
And that's funny. That does kind of explain what's a really bland, nondescript name, and now it makes more sense knowing this context.
Yeah, but yeah, what are some of your other thoughts on this movie?
Oh, I quite enjoyed the movie. In fact, we could kind of walk through it a little bit, the different sequences. The story is that in the opening sequence, Jackie Chan, who in this film is called Jackie Chan, later that
in the English dubbing, but
he's called Kevin in the credits.
Yes,
which is his name in Supercop.
Yes,
and of course May makes an appearance in this, as well as what's his name, who's in all of those.
Inspector Bill Wong.
Yeah, so he's in it again, or for the first time rather. So the opening sequence is a bust operation. They're trying to get this businessman who's heavily involved in narcotics trafficking. And they have this bust going on at this kind of makeshift village. I forget why he's there. I think
it's like a market.
It's like a market, and it's kind of like built on the side of a hill, and it looks like a shantytown kind of place.
Yep.
And there's quite a few cops, of which Jackie Chan is one. It ends in kind of a fun sequence on a bus where Jackie Chan uses an umbrella to hang on the umbrella handle to hang on the side. Well, even
before that, they drive cars off the side of the hillside and down through the shantytown.
Yeah, they destroy the shantytown.
Which is later, I think it probably served as duplication for a scene in Bad Boys 2, which Nate has not seen. But anybody who's seen Bad Boys 2, the scene in Cuba where they drive the vehicles down through the shantytown, I think that's probably based on this movie. So,
But Jackie Chan has to get on this bus that the bad businessman and some of his goons are fleeing on, and then he gets off of the bus for a while, and he has to kind of run down this hillside and get back on the side of the bus. Or actually, no, he's on the side of the bus early on, and then later he gets ahead of the bus and does this kind of stare down thing where it looks like it's going to ram into him, and it stops really quick because it's the driver. They've taken the bus driver hostage.
Yeah.
And Jackie Chan does a thing where he shoots a gun into the air, which scares
the guy who's holding a knife to the driver's throat.
Which allows the driver to stop the car, the bus, and it flings the three goons. This is a double-decker bus.
Yeah.
Out of the front windshields.
Well, and they were actually intended to land because Jackie Chan stops a car in the street, and that's kind of what's blocking the road. And then his gunshot is what leads the bus driver to stomp on the brakes. The guys who come through the windshield were supposed to land on the car, but there was something about the air brakes on the bus that it like had a surge or something. So the bus stopped short of where it was supposed to. So those guys got hurt because they were supposed to land on the car basically to pad their fall, and none of them hit the car.
Yeah, it's so kind of unexpected and sudden that it's really a memorable and entertaining moment because it's like, oh my goodness, these people are thrown onto the concrete. Jackie Chan gets on the bus. He has a confrontation with the bad businessman who tries to bribe him with a suitcase full of loot. He takes the suitcase but then arrests the guy who's hauled off to jail and is supposed to be arraigned like the next day.
Yeah.
Have like a super speedy trial. And there's his secretary. Jackie Chan was involved in capturing her. She was at the scene of whatever they were there for the market.
The girl that he handcuffs to the steering wheel of the car. Yeah.
So she's arrested, and the police decide to
basically force her to flip.
Yeah, And so they release her, but she knows that it's kind of understood that the gangsters will probably try to kill her because there's like, well, they would have only released her if she was cooperating. So
they even set it up worse. They kick the attorney out of the room, and they're like, "We need to talk to you." And then as soon as the attorney's out of the room and the door's shut, they just ignore her. And so she leaves, and they're like, "What did they ask you?" And she's like, "Nothing," and they won't believe her.
They just kind of kept her in there for a minute or so and did basically nothing. And then she's like, "Do you want to talk to me about something?" "No.
You can go."
And they assign Jackie Chan to watch her. She's very reluctant to have his protection, so he gets one of his associates in the police force to don a mask, break into her house while he's outside, and pretend to try to kill her.
With a knife.
Very reminiscent of Mike Myers
in
Halloween, down to a similar type of mask, and then the use of the knife.
And hiding in the closet.
And it's all so that Jackie Chan can save her and get her to trust him.
Yeah.
And agree to the protection.
And make his job easier.
There's some funny moments there. The secretary keeps knocking out the guys that Jackie Chan has to... Smashing things on his head. And
smashing pots on the guy's head. And
he has to do kind of a Weekend at Bernie's thing and prop him up and make it look like he's attacking when he's not really attacking. Yeah. She eventually agrees to cooperate. Jackie Chan takes her to his house.
To his apartment,
His apartment, which he shares with another cop who's on vacation.
Yeah.
I guess they just wrote in that line to explain why Jackie Chan had such a nice apartment on a policeman's salary.
Yeah.
So takes her there. She leaves very suddenly, so she's still basically wearing her nightie and like his jacket. And they go to the house, and Jackie Chan has forgotten it's his birthday, and his girlfriend May, who's in the later films, is there to surprise him and sees this scantily clad girl, and so shoves a cake in his face.
Yeah, makes certain assumptions.
And then eventually, we're in this time frame, so that the real bad guys go after her.
So after Jackie has set up his the other cop fake attacking her, they go down to the parking garage to go to his apartment, and as soon as they leave her apartment to go to his apartment, the real bad guys attack in the street, and there's this prolonged fight scene in the street where her car is basically totaled.
Yeah, it looks kind of like, it's not as bad as in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Yeah.
But it's in the spirit.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
It's ridiculous. It should not be driven at the point that they're driving.
Well, I don't know if you noticed, when they get to his apartment, they're trying to... The car is like surging. It's barely running. Like it's stalling.
There's a little bit of smoke coming out at the end.
I didn't know if you noticed that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's implied that the car actually dies when they get to his apartment. In fact, they've strapped the door. Jackie Chan has kicked one of the bad guys so hard that he ripped the door off of the car. So they've strapped the door to the roof of the car.
Oh, yeah.
And, yeah.
It's funny looking. So there's the fallout of the surprise birthday gone amok.
Yeah.
And while Jackie Chan is trying to make up with May outside of the apartment, the secretary finds a picture of the police academy class that Jackie Chan was in, and sees the guy that attacked her, because he's very briefly unmasks the guy.
Yeah.
And so she does this, and I'm not entirely sure what her motives is. She kind of plays up like she's attracted to him, and they have this kind of awkward dialogue that has to do with a cactus and some sight gags that happen that kind of unexpectedly circles back a little later in the film.
And we should mention that Jackie Chan's supervisors have given him a tape recorder, and part of what they're expecting is of him while he's in this protective detail is that he's going to get her to confess to what this business guy's been doing, and that they'll have this taped evidence that even if something happens to her, they can use in court. Well, meanwhile, this tape recorder's been going the whole time that they've been in the car, and is still going when they get in the apartment. So she has this ploy to get, to basically kind of punk him back after he has punked her, in her apartment to convince her that she needs protection. She decides she's going to prank him back, and so she pretends to be attracted to him, and as we'll see later, this being recorded on the tape becomes a factor later on in the movie, but yeah.
So Jackie Chan goes to sleep. She goes into his bedroom to sleep. He's sleeping on the couch. He wakes up a little late, gets a call from his bosses saying, hey, you need to be down at court. So he goes into his bedroom to get the girl, and she's just gone. She's split.
She's disappeared.
So Jackie Chan has to run to the court to testify. A lot of his associates involved in that bust are there to testify. Very quick turnaround time the very next day having this.
It seems like it's the equivalent in our
like
court system of a preliminary hearing.
Yeah, preliminary hearing.
So at a preliminary hearing in the U.S. system, you present, what evidence you have just so that the judge can decide if there's enough evidence to bind someone over for trial. So it seems like this is what that is happening at this point. It appears to be within a couple days of the arrest.
Well, it seems like it's the next day.
It seemed to me like it was, pretty quick. Yeah, it might be the next day. It's at most, it's 2 to 3 days away. But yeah, it's pretty quick.
Oh. So he shows up to testify. The bad businessman has this lawyer who does some really stupid arguments, but they seem to be working. They're almost like a joke on the legal tricks.
Yeah.
Because like you said, you saw the whole bus, but you could only see one side of the bus because you can only face it at one time. Is that not true? It's like, yeah, okay, that's true.
Yeah. And you couldn't see if he climbed out the other side of the bus.
Yeah, he could have climbed out of the other side of the bus, and it was a different guy that was...
And so many buses would have come by in this time frame. If you're saying this chase lasted 6 minutes, then you should have seen, or 4 minutes, then you should have seen 6 buses. And you said you only saw one bus. And yeah,
that's pretty ridiculous. Because the secretary has disappeared, and she's kind of their key witness. Jackie Chan says, "Hey, I've got
this
tape recorded," and so they bring in some big speaker equipment to play it for the court, and. Without the context of the visuals from the earlier gag, this appears to be kind of a sex farce situation going on here.
Well, so they skip forward on the tape because the tape apparently is a music tape.
Yeah, that is.
And so when they first start playing the tape, it's now blasting this music in the courtroom because Jackie told the guy that's setting the tape up, he said, "It's pretty quiet. You're gonna have to turn it up all the way."
Yeah.
Or turn it up really loud. So it's blasting the court with the music. So they're just fast forwarding, and when they stop fast forwarding and hit play. It's right at this point where she's trying to prank him, and it sounds like in court it makes it sound like they're a sex gag. And,
yeah. So, because there was a thing with a cactus that was his pride and joy, and it sounds like it's something else.
Me.
It's poking me. That hurts. Yeah, and everybody's laughing. The judge is laughing. One interesting visual thing about this was Hong Kong, 1985, so it's a crown colony.
Yeah.
And all the lawyers wear the little powdered wigs.
Yep.
And I don't know if they still do that in Hong Kong. I suspect probably not.
I have no idea.
I think there'd have been no real reason to carry that over.
Yeah.
Hong Kong's legal status is different than the rest of China, but I just don't see a point to the wigs.
Yeah.
So obviously the girl has gotten away. The courtroom situation does not end well. In fact, they demote Jackie Chan, right? Because
I don't recall.
Because he lost the girl, and he tries to get the girl, but later on, at one point, he's at this little district police office, and I think he's been demoted.
I'm not sure whether he's suspended or demoted.
Yeah.
But yeah. And they put him on desk duty at a different office.
And the other people on duty there are taking their lunch break, and so they tell him he's got to man all of the phones during the lunch break, and he's trying to make up with his girlfriend May, because I guess the recurring thing through all these movies is May misunderstands things that Jackie's doing in his capacity as a police officer.
Yep.
And she thinks he's cheating on him or lying or doing all sorts of things he shouldn't be doing. But anyway, he's trying to have a phone conversation with her while also trying to answer these different phone calls.
Yeah.
And it's a really weird choice to have this. It's shoehorned in. It doesn't really need to be there. They're trying to play up Jackie Chan's his comedic capabilities. This is not really the best way to do it.
One thing I'm kind of curious about in this is, so in the way we watched this, it was on a DVD, and the DVD started playing in the original Chinese and was subtitled. Mm-hmm. We switched it over to the English dubbing and turned off the subtitles. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of curious to see what was actually spoken. I would like to at some point rewatch that scene with the subtitles on, because I wonder if that was just bad dubbing or bad, they sometimes when they bring these to the English market, they change what's going on. But the lines that they insert there, the English spoken lines, are terrible.
They're terrible.
Yeah.
This would not go today at all. So he's juggling these phones. He's got a guy looking a reverend,
For a pastor.
for a pastor, and it's like you got to go to the missing persons department. Bad joke. But much worse is he's juggling calls between a woman reporting domestic violence and a woman who is reporting a recent rape.
And looking for a morning after pill.
And he's getting confused back and forth, and he's having lines like, oh, you're the person who got raped. It's like, oh, dude.
And then he's telling someone where they can find the morning after pill, but he actually mistakenly says that to his girlfriend, who's talking about her grandmother's 60th birthday party. And so she's like, wait, you're telling my 60-year-old grandmother she needs a morning after pill? And yeah.
It's kind of icky.
Yeah, it's
and
bad.
It's just strangely there. Yeah, speaking of the dubbing, do you think that the music track is the same in Chinese?
No. So in the Chinese version, Jackie Chan sang some of the songs in this movie.
Well, not the songs, but just the background music.
No, I'm sure it's not.
They make some really weird decisions with some of the background music. Now, one of the places in which it kind of works is the photo montage.
Yeah.
And so they have this, after the original bust, the cops decide, oh, Jackie Chan was so good in this, we need to make him our spokesperson. We'll put him on the TV shows. We'll use him in recruiting posters. And so they have this sequence where they take a bunch of pictures of him in different uniforms doing different things. And they play this PBS Kids sounding music that's just really odd. But it does explain the unnecessary photo montage in Supercop.
Yeah.
It's got to be a play on that. I'm kind of curious now to see the one that goes between these.
Which is Police Story 2.
Police Story 2, to see how many of the same beats it matches as in the other two films.
I actually am not sure if I've seen Police Story 2. I know I've seen this one, and I know I've seen Supercop. I'm not sure I've seen Police Story 2. I'm almost certain that I own it, just because I think it came on a DVD pack of Jackie Chan movies I had that was like 8 movies. But yeah, it's part of me wants to go back and rewatch this with just the English subtitles and let it run in the Chinese and kind of see what some of the linguistic differences are. All of the other movies that we watched, even if they were dubbed, Jackie Chan did his English voices. Yeah. The guy that dubs Jackie Chan's part on this one, it just doesn't match up very well at all. That
took a while
to
kind of overcome, especially early on. It's like, it's just not right. This voice is not Jackie Chan's voice. It's not even remotely like it.
Yeah. Especially, I think we kind of got spoiled. I guess I was going to save this for a little bit later when we kind of talk about the Jackie Chan month in general. Part of me is still a little bit disappointed I didn't just stick with my gut and save Rumble in the Bronx for the last of the month. I know you mentioned that you thought you were glad we ended on this one. I still think Rumble in the Bronx probably is the strongest of the 4 in totality. And I kind of wish we'd saved it for the end, but you win.
And I want to have a little discussion at the end of this, kind of talking about the films and maybe ranking them.
Yeah.
But basically what happens in this story after this point is bad guys, it turns out they have a mole in the police department, and they trick Jackie Chan. They have a source that he has that calls him and says, I know what happened to the girl. You need to go to such and such a place.
She's at these apartments.
But it's a trap that allows them to kill their own mole and try to blame it on Jackie Chan.
Yeah, they actually used Jackie Chan's gun to shoot the mole. They were looking for a service revolver to set this up. And then there's a scene Jackie Chan is actually able to free the secretary. He throws her off of a roof into a swimming pool. She's able to escape. But then a couple of the bad guys wrestle with Jackie Chan, and it is implied that they use ether to subdue Jackie Chan and then use something to keep him under for an extended period of time. And Jackie Chan awakes in a field, severely beaten up, and a couple bullets have been fired from his gun, and he remembers what's going on. Now Jackie Chan's on a mission to try and clear his own name.
Yeah. So he goes back to police headquarters, kind of turning himself in. He's explaining what had happened, that it was framed. The commanding officer basically says,
we're going to charge you with
murder. We have to. This is what it looks like. I have to go off of this. Jackie Chan holds him hostage for a while.
To get out of the station.
A little over the top. Eventually, they take a car. They drive out into the country. Jackie Chan lets his commanding officer go. The commanding officer says, I actually believe in you, so I'm going to have to try to catch you, but I kind of hope that you work, that you clear your name. And so he runs off. And then I get a little confused.
I forget how Jackie Chan tracks down the guys, but then this is setting up the mall.
Yeah, it sets up the
finale.
mall ending, which is one of these very narrow malls. When I was in Hawaii a couple months ago, I was in a very narrow mall, kind of like this in Honolulu. And it makes sense that you'd have kind of narrow malls in some place like Hong Kong, where space is really at a premium.
And this scene goes through a tremendous amount of glass. In fact, I told Nate they broke so much glass in this movie that some of the crew on the set started referring to the movie, instead of as Police Story, they started referring to it as Glass Story. The other interesting tidbit about this is a lot of movie glass that's, you know you're going to break a glass in a movie. It's actually made out of sugar. But when they were making these sugar glasses for this movie, apparently it was somebody who was inexperienced or something. Anyways, a bunch of the glass was made thicker than it was supposed to be made, and so it was harder to break, and so several injuries occurred because of the glass having difficulty breaking.
They do break an awful lot of glass in this sequence.
Oh yeah. In fact, at one point where Jackie Chan hits a guy with a motorcycle and just drives him through basically an entire store worth of glass. Yeah, there's
a lot of sequences around escalators where people being pushed down escalators, and
where Jackie Chan's jumping from upper floors down onto the escalators. And
it ends kind of highlight sequences where he's sliding down.
Well, and to clarify why some of this is happening is all the evidence of the drug lord's bad doing has been somehow gotten consolidated into this briefcase by the secretary.
Yeah, the secretary, when she escaped from the place where she was being held hostage, she snuck somewhere, got into a computer system to print out all the evidence. This is back in the 80s where computers were magic.
Yeah.
And she's got the damning evidence and files she put in a carry case, briefcase.
Yeah.
And she's there at the mall to hand it off to someone.
I think she's meeting other police.
Because the police show up pretty quick, so that would make sense.
Yeah.
But the bad guy...
The bad guys are there, and Jackie's also there. And so there's this prolonged exchange where the briefcase is going back and forth between the various
being tossed
groups.
Back and forth.
And Jackie Chan's fighting guys trying to get to the briefcase. But at one point, the briefcase gets thrown from the third floor down to the ground level. And May is there, and Jackie sends May to go get it, but the bad guys are also there. And so they kick May down multiple flights of stairs and are down on the ground floor, have picked it up. So Jackie knows he's got to get down to the ground floor, which sets up a crazy stunt where Jackie Chan jumps from the third floor of the mall, grabs a pole that's going from the ground to the roof, and slides down this pole through all of these strands of lighting all the way down to the ground floor. Just a crazy stunt, which, of course, it's Jackie Chan. He did the stunt. All of these stunts in this movie are real stunts. In fact, the one you mentioned earlier where he has to use the umbrella to get on the bus, when they used a wooden handled umbrella, the umbrella kept slipping off of the bus. And so eventually they had to switch umbrellas so that Jackie Chan could actually get an umbrella that would hold on.
That's a great scene because the way it's shot, you can tell that is Jackie Chan and that he is, in fact, holding onto this moving bus by an umbrella handle.
Yeah, yep.
That's one of the things I really liked about this film is that it was earlier. A lot of the later films, and this is an inflation that happens. You have to top what came before. And so there's more setup for these elaborate set pieces. It feels a little more organic in this film than in the later films because they're just like, okay, what would happen now? Maybe he's on the bus. Maybe he's at the mall. And they're not doing like a hovercraft through the streets of New York, which is cool, but it's trying in some ways too hard.
Yeah.
Everything here just felt more natural than in those. Or especially something like Operation Condor, which is just set pieces with minimum amounts of plot to tie between them.
Yeah. Which happens in some of the others. Like, if you were to ever watch Jackie Chan's First Strike, there's a scene where there's a painter, and the only reason why the painter's there is to set up a ladder that the Jackie Chan is going to use in the fight. I think you would actually really enjoy First Strike at some point. We might have to, I might have to lend you that one at some point for you to check out. Like I said, I really think you'd like that movie. But again, that movie it's kind of like Who Am I? Where most of the story is designed to set up fights.
Yeah, and Who Am I being one of the very few Jackie Chan films I had seen before Jackie Chan.
But yeah, Jackie Chan jumps down through these strands of light. Apparently, Jackie Chan got quite injured in this stunt because those strands of lights were supposed to be plugged into car batteries, but somehow they've screwed up and many of the strands of lights were plugged into the wall. So Jackie Chan got burned as he was sliding down this pole and then falls off at the end and gets pretty severely injured. And yeah, he does crazy stunts in all of his movies. It's part of what makes Jackie Chan movies, just the crazy stunts. But yeah, they're pretty good. Closing thoughts on? Well, I guess before we wrap up on this, Jackie Chan gets down to the ground floor, and all the police are there, and so they get the briefcase from the bad guy, and they're getting ready to take him into custody, and Jackie Chan just loses it. He punches a couple of cops. He goes
the
nuts
lawyer
on
shows up.
Yeah.
That's actually really funny. And like many of these Jackie Chan films, it just basically ends.
Yeah.
Immediately after that. But the very last 2 or so minutes of it is Jackie Chan just so frustrated that he has to unnecessarily beat up people even though they've already basically won, and there's really no reason to beat them up other than Jackie Chan is really angry at all they put him through. And the cop,
there's a comedic
line between his big boss and then his immediate boss.
The inspector turns to his boss and says, "I'm going to need help with this report," and the big boss says, "What report?" and turns around and walks away.
They're basically like, we're just going to let Jackie Chan commit police brutality, and we're not going to do anything about it because we sympathize with where he's at. And
then the movie just ends.
Yeah, it just ends.
Yeah.
And then you got the trademark bloopers from the action sequences.
Yeah. I'm going to have to pull up the special features on this at some point and see if there's extended bloopers or something like that. But yeah, they always include some of those in some outtakes in the credit scene and whatnot. But yeah. How would you rate this movie?
I really liked it. I'd give this 3 stars.
Yeah, I would agree. On the 10-star scale, I'd probably give it 6.5, 7 stars. Mm-hmm. I don't think I'd give it any better than that. Yeah. Any other thoughts on Police Story?
No, Police Story was fun.
Now, I'm curious what you have made now that we've done a month of Jackie Chan, what you make of Jackie Chan month.
Jackie Chan movies, they're just fun. They're just fun escapism. There's no real grit to them. There's no deeper themes. You wouldn't want Jackie Chan to try to do something kind of serious. Asterix. One time I'd like to see him do it, though I have serious doubts as to whether it would work. And I think there's one that came out maybe last year where his niece gets kidnapped that looks like it was billed as a more serious, kind of dark, gritty Jackie Chan, which might be interesting to see.
I'm not sure. I haven't kept up with him as much nowadays. After the Forbidden Kingdom, I kind of stopped following as much because that's when Jackie Chan. I mean, obviously, somebody who's been doing a career of this type, it takes a physical toll. Mm-hmm. So by the time they made Forbidden Kingdom, Jackie Chan had to start using stunts, wires, things like that to be able to pull off his stunts. And I haven't kept track of much of what he's done since Forbidden Kingdom, so yeah, I'm not sure.
So yeah, I liked it. I'm glad we had Jackie Chan months. I think I'll probably be a little more open to seeing them when they come on. So it's a Jackie Chan, maybe I'll check this out. I was never against him. I just had limited experience with him. Yeah. But this has been a fun month.
How would you rank, now that you've seen these 4 movies, how would you rate these 4 movies?
I was going to ask you the same thing. So
I mean, I've already mentioned that my gut going into this, in my opinion, the best Jackie Chan movie of all time was Rumble in the Bronx. And I kind of wish I'd saved Rumble in the Bronx for the end. It's probably, objectively, it's probably the strongest of these films. Given the nature of what they are and things like that, I mean, I can see why some people rate some of these others better on some of the lists you can find online. But in my opinion, Rumble in the Bronx is just the penultimate Jackie Chan film. In fact, some of these same stunts that are in this one end up kind of being similarly duplicated in Rumble in the Bronx. But I just think Rumble in the Bronx is just an altogether more put-together film.
Well, I would probably, in ascending order, say that the weakest of the films that we watched was Supercop. Okay. And then after that, I would put Operation Condor, which I actually did quite enjoy. And then before that, so 1 and 2 are fairly close. I would actually probably say I would rank this film above Rumble in the Bronx. Yeah. And I think just because it felt a little bit more natural to me, and I tend to favor earlier things, and I just kind of like that it was less refined, less of a Hollywood type product. And I like that it was in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of these other, I mean, this is the only film, there's moments in Hong Kong in Supercop, but this was the only one of his Hong Kong films that we saw this month that's a Hong Kong
Yeah.
based film.
Wasn't Operation Condor?
No, Operation Condor he was in Latin America,
Oh, that's right.
and then he was in Spain, and then he
Yeah.
was in North Africa.
Which I think the majority of the film was filmed in Spain, if
Spain,
I'm not
yeah.
mistaken, but I don't recall. Kind of a fun month. I mean, for the most part, you don't necessarily need to spread these out. You probably could have watched all 4 of these in a weekend and had as much fun, if not more, than we did
Yeah.
by spreading them out. We've also, of course, watched other things on our own in the meantime, but that's a conversation we'll have at a different time. But yeah, Jackie Chan month, it was fun. I'm glad we did it. Not sure if I would have done them in the same order or picked the same 4 movies if we were to do it again. But yeah, I think we had a good sampling. I do at some point want you to watch First Strike just for some comparison and things like that. But yeah, any other thoughts?
No, not
Okay.
really.
Well, I guess we'll wrap this up. This wraps up January. You want to give people kind of a heads up of what's coming in February?
Well, what I'm thinking of doing is doing something about as far away as you can get from Jackie Chan's Hong Kong martial arts films, largely owing to the fact that many of these films are currently accessible on Amazon. We're going to do Werner Herzog month, the West German art director. Which,
Yeah.
again, very different. I like the contrast to kind of go to the other end of the spectrum. That will be an interesting month. I think some of this will probably baffle Rob.
Yeah, we'll find out very shortly, but yeah. And now, by the time you guys hear this, you will also now be able to find this podcast on all major podcasting platforms. We are already listed on iTunes, Google, Stitcher, yeah, all of your favorite podcasting apps. This is now available through all of those. We're just uploading our back catalog before we advertise this online and on social media and things like that. But by the time you guys are listening to this episode, you can go and look for Rob and Nate Record a Podcast in any of your favorite podcasting apps and find us there. And when you're looking for it, it is Rob and the and sign, not spelled out and, but it's Rob and Nate Record a Podcast.
Ron Ampersand?
Yep, Rob ampersand,
ampersand.
Nate Record a Podcast. So, but yeah, that's it for this week, and we will talk to you later.
Because I'm Nate.
And I'm Rob.
And this has been
Rob and Nate Record a Podcast.